Welcome to the Spirituality with Ashley podcast, where we dive into the depths of metaphysics and spirituality to reveal wisdom and insights to help guide us on our journey of self-discovery and growth. In this episode, I channel the Akashic Records live while asking questions about oversouls, reflecting on the collective lessons humanity is currently learning, and seeking guidance on how to transcend fear and embrace love. If you are not already subscribed to my newsletter and you'd like to be notified of upcoming webinars, free stuff, discounts, and new sessions I'm offering, and if you want to be the first to know about that stuff, then definitely sign up for my newsletter. You can do that on my website. It's on the homepage if you just scroll down to the bottom. And if you're not already following me and you like the content that I produce, you could find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, all at Spirituality with Ashley. And you can also find me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All right, so let's get into it. I felt super inspired to go into the Akashic Records for this episode. So I followed that inspiration and I did it right when I was feeling it. So I meditated for a while, did some energy clearing and grounding, and then I used the voice memo recorder on my phone while I was channeling from within the Akashic Records. So there were a lot of long pauses because I was like really in there and channeling, but I did my best to edit them out. So, and the editing software I use kind of like can cut out long pauses too. So I just want to kind of like give you guys some disclaimers. So also because I'm channeling, I may sound a bit different than I normally do. So less energetic, I guess, less inflections in my voice, kind of monotonous a little bit. And also the information may be organized a bit differently as I'm delivering it. So it might not sound exactly like I normally speak, and that's because I'm channeling the information. And I didn't want to edit the channeled information, so what you get is exactly how it was coming through. I did add a bit of my own explanation to supplement what was coming through in an effort to kind of like help explain some of the concepts. And you can probably notice when I start doing that, I'll speak faster and my voice gets a little more energetic, but for the most part, it's all channeled. I think it may have gotten a little muddy in the beginning because I was talking about oversouls, and apparently that is a really complicated concept, and I didn't realize how complicated it was until I was in the Akashic Records and I started channeling the information for it. There is a lot that goes into that topic, and I tried my best to kind of steer and organize it. So hopefully it makes sense. If it doesn't, then please ask me questions. If I need to, I can do a whole channeled episode just on oversouls so we can go into all the nuances about it because it's a super interesting topic. All right, but for now, let's just get into the questions that I asked this round. So without further ado, here is the episode. I hope you enjoy. How does the concept of an oversoul work? And does everyone have an oversoul? If someone doesn't have an oversoul, how does that work? The concept of oversouls may seem a bit complicated. We will try to simplify it so that it is more digestible and easy for you to comprehend in your current density. I'm seeing a net. It's like a net being thrown over a whole bunch of buoys, and the net is the oversoul. And each of the buoys is an aspect of that oversoul. So you can think of each of the buoys as a human, like a human life. Where part of that oversoul incarnates into a human body, and it can incarnate into multiple human bodies and live parallel lives, essentially. So, multiple aspects of that oversoul are able to experience life in different times and in different ways as different physical beings. And if someone does not come from an oversoul, it's because they have an ET soul. It's a different type of soul signature. While all souls are souls, there are characteristics that differentiate how a soul operates in the all that is in the universe. It's like a different set of guidelines. And so if a soul does not have an oversoul, then that just means that that soul is not incarnated into multiple bodies at the same time. They're not having parallel lives, although they can have memories of other lives. And they can have memories of other lives that they haven't necessarily lived before. It's almost kind of like you can go into this library and you can pull a book off the shelf of Cleopatra's life as a soul. When you're in soul form, you can go to a place. It's etheric. It's on the fifth dimension. And you can go to this place and you can essentially pull lives from people who have already lived, and you can kind of absorb those memories so that you can use them in your life to help you with your lessons and as reference points. And by doing that, you don't have to live that life to understand the information gained from that lifetime. So if you have a soul that does not come from an oversoul, that is one of the explanations for how it can seem like you're living parallel lives at the same time when you're actually not. It's just that you kind of have these reference points from other lives. And so someone may not have an oversoul and just be that one expression of a soul if they are, an ET soul. If you are an angelic soul, that can also be the case. So if you come from a higher dimensional frequency and you have not incarnated a lot on Earth or on other planets, that could also be another case where you wouldn't necessarily have an oversoul. Because if you're just starting to incarnate physically, then it's easier to basically manage one physical incarnation at a time. And so you would just have that one life also, and not necessarily be part of an oversoul. So what determines having an oversoul? So Earth is a school that we incarnate on as souls. It's very difficult. It's very quick. And we choose to incarnate here because we learn so quickly. There was a period of time where the souls who were incarnating here for growth were kind of getting stuck in these different cycles. And so it made sense to have an oversoul that was having different experiences at the same time, just because of kind of the way that people were getting stuck in these cycles. And so if one person or that aspect of the soul is getting kind of wrapped up in this cycle of karma, then having multiple incarnations at the same time can help to have other experiences, learn different lessons, get more growth. Because the point of being on Earth for a lot of souls is growth, because it's a school. There are other souls who incarnate here who do not come here for growth, and they actually come here to help the planet, to help our collective consciousness, and like to help to raise our consciousness level and our vibration for ascension so that we can evolve into the next dimensional level that we're all headed into along with the Earth. And so some souls don't necessarily need an oversoul. They don't really need like a management team, I guess you could say. I think that's a weird way to say it. I don't understand what's the difference between a spiritual team and a management team as far as oversouls are concerned. Okay, so a spiritual team, like your guides, help you to plan and then kind of oversee your journey and help you out along the way. Management is kind of like the governing entity of your your soul's trajectory, your soul's path. It's different from a spiritual team. Think of the like management. Think of that as like the energy that creates guidelines. And then your spiritual team is more of like the HR department that supports that. Make sure you're good. Keeps you on track, reminds you of like, gives you the little nudges and signs to help to kind of keep you on course, make sure that you're learning the lessons you need to learn, and you're on a beneficial path for your soul, and it's giving you hints while you're remembering who you are. And so someone without an oversoul is kind of operating with a little they probably have more, well, how do I explain this? So someone without an oversoul would have a mission. The people without an oversoul do still have a group who is helping them, still have guides and a spiritual team, and they're more advanced souls. They've done a lot of growth. You can also have no oversoul if you're an ET, and you often incarnate on other planets and other dimensions and other solar systems. Basically, your resonance is what determines whether or not you have an oversoul. And there is no hierarchy. It's just, it's kind of like it's just a different level. It's a different category. Okay. And so everyone does not have an oversoul. Does that need to be clarified? The oversoul concept. So how can you determine whether or not you have an oversoul? It's not important. Okay. So but if you don't have an oversoul, so there are like parallel life readings that you can get. If you don't have an oversoul, then you wouldn't have parallel lives, right? That is correct. The parallel lives that would be found by somebody finding those, they would be finding lives that your soul has kind of like absorbed the memories of. So kind of like when you go and you pull a book so that you don't have to incarnate, you just pull somebody else's experience, and then you get all of the stuff that they learned from that experience without having to live through it. If somebody's doing a parallel lives reading for somebody without an oversoul, that's what they're finding, is those other experiences that are supporting that incarnation. Because when you're pulling a book with somebody else's experiences and then taking them as your own so that they can help benefit you and give you reference points, you're doing that because it's going to help your path, help you to remember, help you learn the lessons or take the steps, or find the way that you need to go in that lifetime to get what you need out of it, or to accomplish certain tasks, learn certain skills, grow, accomplish your mission. And so it's kind of like an efficient way to get more experiences. And so if you can just get all of your experiences that way, why incarnate? Because incarnating itself is still an experience, and it's still important to experience life physically. It's a different kind of growth, and it's also important. There are benefits for all of that, for both ways of doing it. And if everyone was just pulling books of experiences and not actually living their lives, then we wouldn't have as many experiences to choose from. So we have to keep living lives to create those experiences. What are we learning collectively in 2024? We're learning how to witness the destruction of systems and things that we've been comfortable with, things that we've grown to accept. We're learning to witness the falling of that or the destruction of that, and still be able to rely on our inner peace and find solace in our ability to navigate our lives without these systems and without the programming that we've gotten used to. So we're learning this collectively as we notice shifts in our society, politically, educationally, economically, spiritually, There are a lot of shifts happening. There are a lot of secrets coming out. There are a lot of frameworks that are gradually starting to change, and it can be scary when something that you're used to, something systems that have been established, it can be scary when those fall apart, but it's important for us not to have that fear that can come with change. Change generally involves being uncomfortable, discomfort, and moving out of your comfort zone is usually when change happens. And so watching these changes take place is going to be a bit uncomfortable, and that's okay. And we're learning to navigate and let go of our fear. Our fear is not serving us. It is, again, part of the conditioning, part of the programming. If we are in a fear-based state, we are less in a love-based place. We're not coming from our hearts when we're in fear. We're coming from our egos, because our egos are trying to keep us safe. Our egos want to stick with what is known. And so when a system is changing or a structure is changing, our egos say that it is unsafe, and then it creates fear, because fear is there to kind of keep us in line, keep us comfortable, keep us safe. And so we're learning to be able to recognize when we're feeling that fear, recognize when our egos are stepping in to protect us, and be able to let go of that. That's part of the reason that a lot of inner child work is becoming very popular. Inner child work can help us to understand and work with our egos, because our egos are also still very important. We need them. They're there for a reason. They help us to learn and to grow. And so what can we do to navigate this year to be most in alignment with our divinity? And again, we can let go of that fear. When you are feeling fear, and I think that's the next question, actually, how can we begin to release fear? That's so funny. It's like I knew that was going to be the answer. So how can we begin to release fear? Taking it back to our heart space, feeling love. Whenever you're feeling fear, it's taking you away from feeling love. So get back to feeling love. And you can do that by having gratitude. And honestly, it can be difficult to move from a state of fear to a state of love. They are on opposite ends of the spectrum. And so moving along that spectrum can make it easier, because jumping from one to another is unrealistic. It's not very practical. Just like if you're extremely angry, you're not going to go from being extremely angry to extremely joyful. So when you're moving out of fear and more into love along that spectrum, first, when you recognize that you're feeling fear, so if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling anxious, apprehensive, confused, those are all fear-based states. They're based in fear. Try to move to neutrality, and you can move to neutrality by kind of becoming an observer of your own life. So let's say you're scared of talking about your spiritual beliefs publicly. And so rather than digging into that fear, although that is also a process that you can use, but we're not going to go into that right now. We're talking about kind of changing the vibration, because when you're in fear, you have a fear vibration, you're attracting things that are going to mirror that or support that or give you more evidence for that, because you're vibrating at the level of fear. And so moving to neutrality looks like, if you're observing yourself, that means you're not attached to the emotions that you're feeling. You're just observing. And so you can do that by taking a step back and thinking about what you're going through as if someone else were going through it. So think about somebody that you love. It could be your pet, it could be a friend, it could be your significant other, a family member, someone you care deeply for. And imagine they were going through that circumstance and not you. So that can help you to be able to observe, is taking yourself out of the equation. That can also be difficult when you're having an emotional response to something, or you're feeling very attached to the fear or to however you're feeling. And so another way to move into neutrality is to focus on something that you're grateful for. So let's say you're feeling fear about expressing yourself or expressing your beliefs about spirituality on social media. So then you would pinpoint something that you're grateful for. You're grateful for your health. You're grateful for having a phone or having a computer to be able to go on to social media. You're grateful for having a voice, being able to speak, being able to type. And then once you start thinking about things you're grateful for, that starts moving your vibration out of fear more into gratitude. And so if you do that, you can kind of skip neutrality, because gratitude is a step above neutrality, or maybe a few steps above. And so once you've found the gratitude and you're starting to think of things that you're grateful for, things you're thankful for, things you're happy about that you experience or have in your life or can do, then you can start moving into love and thinking about the love that you have for yourself, the love you have for someone else, the love you have for something important to you. Maybe you love music, maybe you love animals. And then take that one step further and move through the experience of that. So let's say you love music. Put on music that makes you feel good. Put on an upbeat song or a happy song or a song that brings back good memories. If the thing that you love is animals, go on to YouTube, go on the internet, watch some cute puppy or kitten videos or funny dog videos, funny animal videos, and think things like that. If there's a person that you love and that was your reference point for love, then think about that person and send them loving vibrations. All of that stuff will raise your vibration out of a fear vibration. And then once you're out of the fear vibration, then if you want to observe, like, okay, well, why was I fearful about this? Or why was? Because you aren't currently fearful if you're in a vibration of love or neutrality or joy. So why was I fearful? And then reflect. Because understanding why you're fearful gives you that next step for the growth, so that you can start unpacking and unraveling the fear, so that it's not. And I'm seeing like a spool of thread. So when you have fear about something, it's like wrapped around you. So think of like a tight belt. And so as you understand what is creating that fear, it allows you to loosen the belt a bit, or unravel that spool of thread so it's not wrapped so tightly. And as it loosens, it's easier to remove the thread, or as the belt gets bigger or looser, it's not squeezing you so much. And so as you continue to unpack the fear and figure out the root of it, so let's say, like, for example, let's keep this going. You are fearful of expressing your spiritual beliefs publicly on social media. Where is that fear stemming from? Is there a time in your life that you've experienced maybe being reprimanded or being put down, or somebody got mad at you for expressing your truth? Maybe you got shut down as a child. If you can't think of anything, any reference for why you would be worried about expressing yourself or getting rejected in this life, then it could be remnants of a past life of being persecuted for your beliefs, or having an experience where you were very spiritual and you spoke about it and then you got killed or you got tortured. And so then that's another avenue of exploration, and then you can go into past lives and get past life hypnosis, past life regression session, or get an Akashic Records reading where you ask about your past lives, or do a past life meditation where you go through and you try to experience your own past lives and get answers that way. And then understanding the root of where that fear is coming from. Once you understand what that is, then you can work on accepting that whatever it was that caused you to be fearful is not what's happening in this present moment. So this present moment is your truth. Something that happened in the past is no longer the truth. That's not a current vibration. And so if you're feeling fear from something that happened in the past, it's because you're still holding on to the vibration of that feeling. And another way you can deal with that is by getting an emotion code session and releasing the vibration of that emotion. There are so many avenues that you can you can explore for moving out of a fear-based state. And so now I'm going to ask the last question, which is, what message would benefit the collective most right now? Compassion for ourselves and compassion for each other. As many of us are remembering who we are and coming back to that state of love and compassion, remembering our divinity, where we come from is a place of love, and it feels good. And when we incarnate on earth, this is a different vibration. It's very dense, it's very heavy. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of confusion and frustration, because a lot of people have forgotten where they came from and their true soul self, because your true soul self comes from love and is love. And so when we're encountering anger, fear, lust, interesting, that word's coming through too, rejection, violence, aggression, when we're encountering these things in our lives, we can help everyone else. We can help the vibration of the collective by remembering that if we choose to have compassion and love in that moment, that is one more, it's like throwing, the image that I'm seeing is like throwing a pebble or a stone into a lake or a pond, and then watching those ripples fan out. Those ripples affect the whole lake, the whole pond. That one action of throwing the pebble in is the same as us taking one action of compassion, understanding, love. And that action that we take from a loving place ripples out through the collective, and it further perpetuates our ascension into that vibration and away from the violence, the pain, the heaviness, because we're moving out of the heaviness. It does feel gradual as we're going through it, as our DNA is being upgraded, as our vibrations are raising along with the earth. It's a gradual process, and we can contribute, speed that process along by continuing to allow ourselves to hold as much light as possible, to open up our hearts, to be compassionate. It can be very difficult when other people are not expressing compassion, I find. I personally find this happen when I'm driving, and people in traffic just, at least where I live, seem to be very wrapped up in their own lives. They're not really considering that other people also have their own lives. And it's wild, because I'll watch like traffic happen sometimes, and it's because people don't want to allow space for other people. And it's because they're wrapped up in their own lives. And I think that this is part of the conditioning that we've been indoctrinated into and inundated with. I mean, I remember growing up with the saying, like, you have to look out for yourself, because who else is going to look out for you? Like, things like that we don't realize have become part of our belief system. And they're not serving us. I mean, yes, love yourself, take care of yourself, look out for yourself, but also extend that compassion to the people around you. It'll make a better world, a better life, a better experience. If everyone did that more and chose that action, our world would be very different. But it starts with the few. It starts with a few of us, and then it expands as that vibration ripples throughout our society, throughout the earth, throughout time and space. That's beautiful. Okay. So that concludes the session of Ask the Akashic Records. Love this. If you have questions that you'd like for me to ask the Akashic Records, please send them in. You can email them to me. You can send them to me on Instagram. Instagram is the best place to message me. I do check TikTok messages, but I'm kind of veering a bit away from TikTok and focusing more on Instagram. So Instagram or email is the best place to reach me for right now. And I will always keep you updated if that changes. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really love going into the Akashic Records. I am going to be trying to do more episodes where I'm channeling information because I really want to share universal information with everybody. I think it would help us to be able to understand more of these concepts more clearly and kind of bring a lot more of this stuff to light, create more conversations around these things, because it's important for everybody to eventually wake up so that we can all ascend. And those of us who are awake can definitely help support and inspire and educate and lead other people who are just now starting their journeys. All right. So on that note, I love you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, sending you all of the love.